our agenda, we were going to have Dr. Antipas Harris, who we've gotten to know over the last year as Older Nation, has supported his work with the Urban Renewal Center in several different areas. Unfortunately, due to a family emergency, he is not going to be able to be here. It turns out, coincidentally actually, that he was our preacher last Sunday, 1 week ago. And so we happened to record him. He didn't even know he was being recorded. But we do have that. Just let me read a little bit about Dr. Harris that will help give you an introduction if you don't know him. He dedicated his life to the work of social justice and leading at the intersection of faith, education, and public life. He believes people are eager to see things change for the common good, and faith has an ongoing role in his life and the public life, and in social vitality. True education is a critical reflection of all that gives meaning for him and for the world, he believes. Faith, service, victories, and its challenges, all of them. And Dr. Harris is the founder and president of the Urban Renewal Center in Norfolk, with a focus on homeless services, including workforce development, job shelter, and meals, impact youth arts program, providing underserved youth with instruction in performing arts, and the Beloved Community program to build strong relationships in diverse communities and heal racial brokenness. He is working in volunteer advocacy support for tutoring for children, mentoring for incarcerated persons, and for assistance as they navigate the way of success after jail. Securing personal identification and preparation of resumes and job applications for those who otherwise would have a difficult time making that happen. Dr. Harris earned a bachelor's degree from LaGrange College, a master's degree from Emory University, a master's degree from Yale University, a doctor of ministry from Boston University. He shares a lot of things with Dr. King. And a doctor of philosophy from St. Thomas University. He's not here today, but you are going to get to hear his sermon that he preached to us, which coincidentally fit the very topics we're talking about today, becoming a beloved community.
Grateful to be with you today, and I want to express my appreciation for the invitation. I've been excited ever since I was invited. And I'm a little bit more awake now than I was at 8 o'clock. I may have something useful to say at this time. Today, it emerged in the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, Harvard philosopher Josiah Royce. His interlocutors were people like William James, who arguably is the father of modern psychology, focused more on the individual. He wrote the book Varieties of Religious Experiences. Josiah Royce had concern that the focus on individuality coming out of the Enlightenment was potentially a crippling of a society with more potential to do greater things if we focused on community. He said that I am better when I am in community. Now, he was a philosopher, and many deemed him an absolute idealist, thinking that the idea of focus on community was a utopian idea that had no particularity as far as concretizing in our culture. He was particularly concerned about the racial issues in the early 1900s, and he had some early concern about the gender problem, the oppression of women. Josiah Royce was the one of the doctor fathers for the first African American to earn his PhD at Harvard. His name was W.E.B. Du Bois. Du Bois studied with Royce and was really convinced of the philosophical ideas, but was quite frustrated that it appeared that the Harvard professors were were bantering ideas that never made it down to practice. It's called armchair philosophy. So when W.E.B. Du Bois got his PhD, he turned to sociology, believing that sociology as a discipline had greater potential for concretizing these ideas. Later in Josiah Royce's journey or academic journey, he doomed himself an absolute pragmatist because he was absolutely convinced that his ideas were not just philosophical, but they were praxis-oriented. But of course, he was still stuck in the ivory tower of Harvard without an opportunity to concretize these ideas. Now you have W.E.B. Du Bois who understood the concepts and believed that they were not only relevant to the African American community, but there was opportunity within the black church to actually advance these ideas. He wrote the book, The Negro Church, in which he tried to explain how the black church was a reflection of what could be something like a beloved community. Martin Luther King Jr. picked up on these ideas and said they're neither philosophical absolute idealism, nor are they sociological banterings, but this can be concretized by moral call, a theological call of the church. In fact, he said, I'll leave the ivory tower type setting of Boston University and I'll take it to the streets. So he took his message to the street, believing that the beloved community, a concept that was lifted from Apostle Paul's talk about the church. King believed that the beloved community is a society based on justice, equal opportunity, and love of one's fellow human being. Jesus explains in the gospel text that how we treat others in need have eternal ramifications. If I get too excited, it's all Bob's fault. He gave me coffee. Don't encourage me too much. I'll get too excited. In the gospel reading in Matthew 25, Jesus says that in what Paul seems to call the day of Christ, Jesus will judge us not by personal piety, but by social justice. Jesus is clear that the hungry, the thirsty, the incarcerated, the homeless, folks in need of clothes, and those who are sick are the community of faith's responsibility. So I want to submit that if you don't have one of those or not all 6 of those friends in your life, you need some more friends. Do you know somebody incarcerated? Do you know somebody hungry? Do you know somebody thirsty? Do you know somebody homeless or folks in need of clothes and folks who are sick? They are our responsibility. Repeat after me, our responsibility. Now, it's easy to judge others based on our own point of reference. If I did it, they can do it. Those people, why are they behaving that way? Our challenge today is to increase our love. That's what the epistle writer says. Increase our love through, watch this, knowledge expansion and the search of deeper understanding. It's hard to judge somebody you actually understand, even if you don't agree with them. This is part of the challenge in our society. We no longer have civil discourse. We meet and quickly figure out, are you Republican or Democrat? And as soon as we figure it out, there's a wall that goes down. And you hear nothing else the other person is saying, because now we're polarized by a society that has decided you're that kind of person, you're that kind of person. Dare I say, it drives a wedge within the context of faith. Today we are invited back to Paul's writing about our love being increased through the expansion of knowledge. Just the other day, on LinkedIn, I posted something about Terry Nichol. And I called it a lament. Someone just attacked me publicly. And I'm not really afraid of confrontation. So I wrote back. And we went back and forth, and then he sent me a private message and said, hey, I'm a professor here locally, I don't know you, but I was just wondering if maybe we could just have lunch. I said, what a wonderful idea. So we planned lunch, we went to Swan Terrace, in fact. And when I walked in, I knew who he was because he was standing like this. I said, oh, you want to fight? And I walked into and said, hey, how are you? And then I said, I just want to get to know you. Where are you from? The whole conversation turned to, where are you from? And then by the end of the conversation, I said, I know we had some back and forth on LinkedIn. I said, but, you know, sometimes it's just good to know the person, get to know the person. I said, I think we have more in common than we think. We just come at it in different ways, or we may have disagreement about solutions, and that's okay, because the beauty of community is actually difference. But that art of community formation has been lost in the crevice of a society that is divided based on perspective. I pray that our love be expanded through the expansion of knowledge and deeper understanding. And I said to him as a believer, I feel like I have a friend. And my friend doesn't agree with me. And that's totally fine. But you're my friend. He said, I think so too. He sent me a message and said, I really appreciate the conversation we had. See, this applies in every aspect of our lives, whether love relationships, annoying neighbors, friends, colleagues. You have any of those? As well as people who seem so different from us economically, physically, emotionally, racially, ethnically, and even religiously. I want to submit 3 V's for your consideration. The first V is the vision. The second is the voice. And the third is the value. The vision. Martin Luther King Jr. talks about the end being reconciliation. What is the vision? Our society is going somewhere very fast, and I'm not sure where we're going. What is the vision? King wanted to cast a vision of reconciliation. Reconciliation does not mean agreement. Reconciliation has to do with being in community together. He says the end is redemption. The end is the creation of, yes, you know, the beloved community. It is this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opponents into friends, he says. It is possible to have unity in diversity. King says that the beloved community includes the people who are even hostile and don't like me, hate me. He says because if you shut them out, you abort the possibility of being in good relationship. That's why he led a non-violent protest. I don't want to be violent toward the people that hate me because an enemy can actually be turned into a friend. And they also have a place in the beloved community. But to achieve this, we need 3 S's. You see? 3 B's. Now you need 3 S's. The first is we got to be selfless. More about the other than the self. Number 2, we have to be sacrificial. Willing to pour out of ourselves for the other. This is a theme or motif in the book of Philippians also. It's called in Greek kenosis, the pouring out of oneself. And then 3, we have to be service-oriented. You see, in a society in which the ROI is the barometer of success, community demands outpour with no expectation of material return. The greatest return is service does not only do something for the other, but service reorients me. It helps me understand more deeply. It's not the handing out of a plate to someone who needs it. It's the getting to know the person who needs the plate. And through the process of getting to know them, we realize we are more alike than we are different. I lead the Urban Renewal Center through the pandemic. We had a strong emphasis on the homeless population. We've mobilized volunteers from different congregations to be involved in the city of Norfolk with the low barrier homeless population. Time and time again, people will come and say, thank you, this is just amazing. One particular, there's a woman who has some mental health issues who is homeless. Someone said, when I saw Sharon on the street, she was just a homeless woman. Now, Sharon is my friend. And when I see her on the street, I roll down the window and say, hey Sharon, what are you doing? Where are you sleeping tonight? Why do we have so many homeless people? What can we do about the housing? See how that changed the person's outlook? That carries into the voting booth. That carries into advocacy. When we actually get to dehumanize people who otherwise we would objectify. This is why working with the homeless is so important to me. Growing up in the Deep South, I grew up with a very fundamentalist idea. Live by the sword, die by the sword. Until I was a chaplain in the prison and worked on death row. And actually, it was an all-women's prison in Atlanta. And I actually got to know people, and my whole theology flipped on its head. I went from advocating for capital punishment to campaigning against it. Because I know somebody. And this is challenging my theology of redemption. I know someone. I know her story. I know where she came from. I know what the situation was. And what if she didn't do it? There's so many things that happen that transform us when we actually get to know people. You see, that leads us to our third V, the voice. Once we are selfless, service-oriented, sacrificial, then it empowers our voice to speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves, to advocate for the least of these. Now I'm very interested. We got interested in helping the homeless with the housing overnight, and then we got interested in helping them get jobs. And now that they have jobs and still living in the homeless shelter, they have entered into another population. It's called the ALICE population. Access limited, income constrained, but employed. And did you know in this region more than 50% of the population is access limited, income constrained, but employed? Deep South, we used to call it working but can't make ends meet. Because the housing prices are going up, food prices are going up, everything's going up, the salaries. So now my organization is vested in helping the ALICE population. We just partnered with United Way, and we're seeking because we want not only to give a hand out, we want to give a hand up and invite people into the beloved community where we all can enjoy life together. The voice is one of mutuality. This is not a personality-centered voice. The voice depends on the gifts and talents in the midst. The voice is cause-driven. The voice is not personality-driven. The voice is unified amid diversity. This is why we're working with youth. It's called Impact Youth Arts Program, and ODC is heavily involved in this project. We have Thursday nights meet right over at Williams Farm Rec Center. We're up to about 20 or so 4th to 7th graders, because the research shows that the arts are a great opportunity to engage youth, especially those who are that may be easily drawn into violence. The life path can be redirected through the arts. But secondly, and equally important, we don't just want to focus on distressed children. We want to focus on all of the children. And we want all of the children of Virginia Beach to be involved in the Impact Youth Arts Program, because you know why? Because children have a place in the beloved community together. It's important that kids not be segregated, but be together, because there is a rich experience of education that happens, so that the future won't be like the past with adults who don't know each other and causing factions in the community. It starts when they're children. So we're looking for ways and opportunities to bring black, white, brown kids, kids with means and kids without means together to form the beloved community around the arts. Then lastly, the value. The value is loyalty. Another human being is not the object of another human being is the object of loyalty. It has to do with commitment and faithfulness to another person. Number 2, faithfulness. A commitment to the word. 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, now it's required that those who have been entrusted must prove faithful. Then lastly, and most importantly, the value is love. Loyalty, faithfulness, love. Love is more than a feeling, more than an idea, more than a confessional statement, more than a confession of faith. Love is behavior. Love seeks to know, wants relationship for better human connection. And through love, we can change the world. Sisters and brothers, with the Apostle Paul today, my prayer is this, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God